This is a Kawasaki Ninja 500 SE, and if you guys have been watching the channel for a little bit, you may know that I've been punching up on this bike left and right ever since it was announced.
What we're getting, which kind of upsets me, is a slower, porkier, torquier, kind of bloated and fatter and bigger and heavier, and that really takes away from the charm of a little bike.
I thought the Kawasaki kind of just did a little Me Too upgrade to try to compete with the new 450 category like the CF Moto and the Aprilia RS 457. I didn't like the fact that they just stroked out the old motor, made it a 451 and rounded way up to a 500 so they could get that branding recognition, and in doing so has confused the entire Kawasaki lineup in my opinion. But in today's detailed X-ray video, we're gonna take a really deep dive on this bike, look at some of the intricacies and really find out how it's different over the 400. This is stuff you're not gonna see anywhere else. Now, of course, this Ninja 500 SE is a brand new giveaway bike on yammynoob.co. We just wrapped up the RS 457, which many of you got into, but now this is your next chance to win the other awesome new beginner sport bike in this category. Make sure you head over to yammynoob.co and become a member for your best chance to win. It's a great way to support the show, join up on the Discord, get access to our live stream, the ability to do so much cool stuff with everything we got going on here. You'll also get access to our amazing newsletter, which gives you even more content that you may not have heard about yet. Let's take a closer look at this bike and see what exactly you're getting for that SE moniker. The SE trim does get you quite a bit of kit on the Ninja 500. You guys will probably notice these branded frame sliders, which is a great addition for beginners. Kawasaki is really positioning this motorcycle as the premier all-around great beginner bike option, as you guys probably saw me talk about in my first ride and review. It's still working with the old school Nissan caliper over here. This is the exact same from the Ninja 400, but if you look up there, you'll see that it is now having a radiator guard. That's part of the SE package as well. So you'll see slight updates and slight things that have stayed the same over time. One thing that has not stayed the same is this new keyless ignition system. You'll see that you press the button here and then you turn it on, and the new TFT display also comes to life. This is the same display that's being used in the ZX6, in the H2, in all of Kawasaki's motorcycles that feature TFT, you get this same system. And also this is what the keyless system looks like. You get a little flip out because you still have to open up the passenger pillion as well. Exact same fork setup as the Ninja 400 as well. This is the same triple, the same geometry, mostly the same everything here, honestly. All these switch clusters are exactly the same. Non-adjustable brake lever, which is a bit of a bummer. You also get this new, taller windshield on the Ninja 500 SE, which gives you a little bit more sport touring prowess, which is pretty cool. Pretty neat as well, you get USB option right here. This is a USB-C plug that you simply flip down this little rubber tab and you can tap in there and then mount up your phone on the motorcycle, which is pretty sweet, or any other accessory you'd like to put on there. Looking at the dash a little bit more, you do get some fancier features that you didn't normally see on a Ninja 400. You now have range showing up by miles here. You have Bluetooth connectivity if you really so choose, average speed, total time, the battery, which is super important to know at all times, your average miles per gallon, and yeah, you just get a lot of different things in here. Different trip meters, odometers. I mean, this is a pretty sweet little setup here. I do wish that this was accessible via a button over here. That would make it a little easier to do on the fly, but then again, I don't really see why you'd want to flip on the fly between your average MPGs and your range and that sort of thing, but I really do like keeping it on the range because it does it in real time, which is pretty cool too. You guys obviously noticed the 40th anniversary livery on this motorcycle. I think it looks really cool. I always love the way this looked, especially on Jonathan Rea's Kawasaki back in, I think, 21 or 22 that they did it. Looks really nice. I do think that the Kawasaki sticker here did end up a little bit mangled. I think it would have looked better if they had just put it on here or following this green line just like this, maybe a little smaller. It would have looked a little cleaner in my opinion. Looking at the frame and the engine, it is remarkably similar to the Ninja 400. I believe this chassis is virtually the same, and the engine block is the same. The only thing that they've done is they stroked the motor out to 451cc, which is why it doesn't rev out as much. So now obviously the piston travels further and it's a little less short stroke, right? That means you can't rev as high on this machine. The foot pegs and the rear sets, you know, compared to something like the RS457, they do look a little pedestrian, but I tell you what, with the way the Kawasaki's building this, you know they're printing money on these things. Looking at the rear of the motorcycle here, you notice that swing arm is the same Ninja 400 swing arm. It's the same kind of rectangular look to it, not that particularly interesting to look at, and it's starting to look a little long in the tooth when you look at stuff like the RS457. Muffling is handled primarily at the slip-on canister here, so if you wanted your Ninja 500 to be a little bit louder, all you'd have to do is put a slip-on and it would be quite a bit louder. On the SE trim, you also get these tank pads as well. These are not really grippy tank pads that you could use on track or anything like that. They're really meant to just, I guess, protect the gas tank from your belt buckle and maybe your jeans and stuff. It's not really a grippy material, it's more of a plasticky material. No quick shift option for the Ninja 500 from the factory. I don't really think it needs it, to be perfectly honest, but there is not even an option to do it on this machine. You see here the rod is just connected to the output shaft of the engine right there, for the gearbox and the transmission, and it's just one of those things that it would be a nice to have feature, but Kawasaki, I think, leaves some of those more for their ZX line of motorcycles. I don't think the Ninja line of the 500 or the 650s, they're not really thinking about, you know, putting quick shifters on those. Ninja 500 also comes with a helmet lock right here, keyed to the bike. That is new, we did not see that on the Ninja 400. And then of course, right over there, you have the ability to pop open this rear seat as well. You'll notice too, the Ninja 500's look has kind of changed a little bit. The fairings are wider, they have these very slight winglet style fairings here, just to kind of make the motorcycle a little bit more aggressive. And I do think it ultimately does look a little bit more aggressive, but still retains the Tsugomi styling, the Kawasaki styling, the kind of Ninja line. You can very clearly see the delineation between this model, the ZX6, the ZX4. They all have very, very similar features. But the quickest way, if you're ever looking at a Kawasaki motorcycle and you want to know if it's a ZX or a Ninja, look for the Ram Air. The 500s, the 650s, the old 300s, obviously none of them have a Ram Air scoop in front of the fairing because it's not nearly as high performance of an engine. But if you see the ZX4, the ZX6, they all have the Ram Air in the front for a high performance motorcycle engine. Front fork, as far as I can tell, is exactly the same as the old Ninja 400. I don't think they changed anything there. They're even still using these kind of dorky reflectors that come on all Japanese motorcycles. I think the wheels are the same as well. They've obviously painted them green for this 40th anniversary edition, but if memory serves me correctly, these are even the same wheels that the 400 used, which really gets you to understand that this is a evolution of a motorcycle, not a revolution, really. You can think of the ZX4RR as that revolutionary beginner-ish bike that Kawasaki makes, but the 500, certainly a small evolution on what it used to be. One thing I did want to point out that is the same as the Ninja 400 is this frame and the subframe. They're all one piece. This is all welded together, so if you do crash this motorcycle and you bend your subframe, you're probably gonna have to total the machine and you're not gonna be able to fix it unless you tap it back into place or something like that, which not really recommended. Passenger pegs, relatively easy to remove. However, this one on this side is attached to the exhaust. So if you wanted to remove these passenger pegs and ride solo, you will have to come up with some sort of hanger solution for your exhaust because you have to mount it to something like the passenger peg here. I bet you could build a little bracket and get it over here. Probably pretty simple. Get a piece of aluminum, drill it, bend it, put it into place. Pretty easy. With this engine, known quantity, known architecture, probably bulletproof reliable because Kawasaki's been building these parallel twins for 20 or 30 years at this point. I mean, the Ninja 500 is a moniker that dates back to the mid-90s, if memory serves me correctly. I think they stopped making that motorcycle in 2008, and now it's kind of funny that the 500 has kind of come back in a way, but in a totally new version. So as you guys can see, Kawasaki certainly sprinkled on some fun new features for the 500, but it's largely the same as the 400. And that is no bad thing. The 400 had a beautiful handling to it. It really was a nice motorcycle. This bike seats a little bit tiny for what it's worth compared to some of the other bikes in the category, but it still feels like a rock solid, awesome beginner bike. And there's really not too much that's different on this 500 over the 400. Again, evolution, not revolution, and Kawasaki will certainly sell a bunch of these because a lot of people want that known quantity. Thanks so much for checking out this X-ray video on the Ninja 500 over here. Remember, head over to yammynoob.co, become a member, join up, and earn your chances to win this motorcycle, have it show up right in your driveway. If there's anything you want to see me do specifically with this motorcycle, I'm gonna have it for a little bit, so drop me a comment down below and let me know what you'd like to see me do with this motorcycle. Any specific tests, perhaps a track day test, maybe compare it against another motorcycle. I know plenty of you want to see it versus a CF Moto 450 SS, so if I can swing a loaner bike or a beautiful fan of the channel wants to lend me one for the day, I will happily oblige. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I truly do appreciate it. We'll catch you in the next one. See you later.
Keep watching Yammy Noob.